all about writing with Ben and Sara.
Welcome to All About Writing, the podcast that covers everything about the world of writing from the inside out. This is episode 21, part 4 of our series on the business of writing. I'm Sara, here with my co-host Ben, who is an award-winning, best-selling author and ghostwriter, editor, and publisher.
And I'm Ben, here with my co-host Sara, who's an award-winning, best-selling author, screenwriter, editor, and TED Talk presenter. And in this series, we talk about various aspects of the business of writing. But today, we want to zoom in on the author, how it's important as an author, whether you self-publish or traditionally publish, to think like a business person. And I got to say right now, having been in this business for 15 years, I'm glad that I have a glass of wine with me today, because this topic can be hard.
The only way I'm handling this is using a whiskey glass, but I'm filling it with wine. You see, that's you were like, I have a stemless wine glass, and I'm like, I have one up on you, Ben. I'm using a crystal, whatever the heck this is that we got for anniversary. The business of writing is hard.
That's right. Well, cheers to that.
Cheers. Mm-hmm.
But like it or not, publishing is a business. And if bookstores and publishers don't make money, they go out of business. So even though as authors, as artists, as auteurs, as creatives, we don't often like to think about the grubby business of money, it's essential to keeping the industry going. So for authors, if you want to make this your sole profession, like you get paid to be an author and that's it, you have to think about money because you have to make money. But even if writing is just your side hustle, it's still important to think like a business person for a couple of reasons. Actually, for a whole bunch of reasons, which we're going to get into today. Sara, any initial thoughts on thinking like a business person?
I think the hardest part for most of us authors to do in the business of writing is to promote. And unfortunately, self-promotion is the name of the game.
Yeah.
And unless you have, excess funds that you can hire a PR company or advertisers or a social media doctor to help you kind of do it for you, you have to self-promote. And yet that is the crux of the business of writing, is you have to not only create, but you also have to self-promote. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. And as a Midwesterner, and you're a Canadian, like it's almost like that's an antithesis to everything we've been brought up to be, right? Like to talk about ourselves, oh no, that's bragging. You should never do that. Goes against decades of upbringing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, how's your book? It's okay,
It's fine. It's nice.
Yeah, okay.
I should impart a story a little bit here to emphasize how self-promotion is hard. When I got my deal for HarperCollins, and it was a great advance. It was out of the blue. It was a huge deal. Big 5 publisher. And I called my parents and my mom didn't pick up. So then I called my dad and I said, "Hey Dad, I just got a book deal. It's with HarperCollins." And he goes, "Oh." And he goes, "Are they big?" I'm like, yeah, they're big. Like I didn't want to list like they publish everything from Moby Dick on, right? I was like, yeah, they're big. And he's like, "Oh, that's nice. Good job. I'll have your mother call you." And he hung up. And the conversation was less than 30 seconds. And it didn't occur to me to make a bigger deal out of it. Even to my own parents. And I think 3 days later, my mom called me back, right? To be like, "I heard you might have this book thing." So self-promotion, even within our own family, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but yet that's the business.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. The self-promotion is something every author has to get comfortable with. And it is uncomfortable for most of us to do. But it's the way it is. It's what you have to do because honestly, no one else is going to talk about your book as much as you can, and no one is going to be as excited about your book as you are. Now, if you get to the point where you've got legions of fans who cosplay your characters, that's a different problem, and we'll happily talk about that another time. But for now, for most of us, you still have to be your own best promoter, and that is true. And if you don't come from that background, if you aren't a professional salesperson, then it can be really hard. Um, so what you have to do is think about this as a business, right? Because we are creatives as authors, and writing is very much tied up in our creative process. And if we only think like creatives, then we will be tempted to make emotional decisions. And thinking like a business person can balance that. An emotional decision, oh, I don't want to brag. But the business person will say, well, you got to get the word out there. This is marketing. Marketing 101. You got to get out there. And so you can say, okay, yeah, well, I'm not actually bragging. I'm just promoting my book. So that's an example of how if you can train yourself to think as if this is a cold, hard business, then you can balance that with all the warm fluffiness of being a creative, and hopefully the two together will find you in a nice place where you can move forward effectively while still staying true to yourself.
Yeah. I think staying true to yourself is especially important when it comes down to the writing part of this. Um, the easiest thing to do and yet hard for people if you haven't trained yourself to go there is to pull yourself away from the book and look at it as a transactional piece of uh, something that is a sale thing, something you sell. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's so hard to explain this because I see it in my head, but it's like, what about this book is relevant today? What is the hook about this book
Mm-hmm.
that is relevant today that makes it sellable, unique to the market, special to the market, interesting to the market?
Yep.
And and I believe the message of this. It's no different than a salesperson who believes in the thing they're selling, whether it's toilets or medical equipment, right? If they truly believe what they're selling and believe in it, that shines through and they become these really successful salespeople. So you need to almost transcend your creativity and look at it and go, what about this particular piece of art is especially sellable right now? What's that hook into the market? And how can I mercenarily
Mm-hmm.
cash in on that?
Yeah.
And I believe in what I'm selling, so I should be a really automatically good salesperson for this particular product. Even though it's mine, I believe in it. And that belief actually makes a big difference because it's not like a rote um like I'm doing it for a job. It's something you truly believe in. And if you can kind of funnel that energy that way, that helps a lot.
Absolutely. And pretty much everything that you do as marketing for an author is going to have to rely on that mindset of, I believe in this product, I know why it's important, and I know
Yeah.
how to angle it so that it'll reach the right people. But even beyond the marketing, you're absolutely right about the marketing, but even beyond the marketing, the production of a book requires a business mindset as well. Now, if you are going to go traditional publishing, you will have a lot of help with that because you'll have an agent and a publisher who will take care of that. But you, as the author, still need to be able to think like a business person to talk effectively to your agent and to talk effectively to your editor and your publisher because they are making decisions that are business decisions. Your agent might love your book, but if they're having trouble selling it because of something, they may say to you, we need to change the title, let's say. Maybe that's it. You know what, the title just isn't working, and I can see why it's not working. We got to change the title. As a creative, you might be like, no, that title is perfect. It so perfectly captures what I'm saying here. Do you not get it? Of course the agent gets it, but the agent wants everybody else to get it too, and they might have a business insight, and so you have to be able to think that, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. The If we change the title, will it like change the meaning of my work? No. Will it completely sell out No, it's just I got to change this angle so that I can better communicate with the people who need to see this book. And same with the publisher. The publisher will have their own opinions about the cover. And having been a publisher, I can tell you, there are few things I argue more with about authors than the cover. Because often authors will come with their idea of what they want the cover to be and what they've envisioned in their mind for years. Totally fair. And I was a nice publisher, and I would actually ask my authors, what would you like to see? I'm not promising I'm going to give it to you, but what would you like? And let me see if that works for us. Most publishers don't even care. Nope, this is what you're getting. Because we know, as business people, as marketing people, as design experts, this is what's hot right now. This is what will sell the thing. And as an author, business person, you have to think, okay, I'm doing this and I'm compromising perhaps on this because I recognize that the experts are telling me that this is what we need to do to succeed. And a business person can see that. It's easy. For a business person, that is an easy thing to see. But as a creative, it can be hard. It can be really hard. So that's something to think about as well. You have to deal with business people as an author at every stage of the production of your book and the marketing of your book. So if you can think like a business person, then you'll at least be in the same conversation as everybody around you, and you'll be able to understand why they're saying what they're saying.
I agree 100%. I mean, you and I have argued about titles of books based on what salespeople say. I mean, dealing with HarperCollins and dealing with cover designs that go back and forth between my agent and my editor and their creative team. I mean, it is a science
Yeah.
to try and sell books. And um and even when it comes down to the social media that you do, I've been doing a lot of research recently on, and you and I have waxed on about Instagram and all these other mediums for promoting books. And as much as people despise, especially introverts who are writers or people who don't like to self promote, which is most of
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
um, you know, the sad truth is if you spend a lot of time on social media, you sell your books and the numbers don't lie. Book talk on TikTok, I mean, the numbers don't lie. Like people make direct correlations with, if I do this many posts, this many days, this many weeks, I see this many book sales compared to that. And as much as we don't like to hawk our wares,
Mm-hmm.
I think in the end it becomes a personal decision too, right? Especially if you're small press or self-published or any of that. Is your goal to make a living selling books? Is your goal to supplement your income selling books? Is your goal to sell 10 books before you die? I mean, what's your goal? And from there, you need to build a business plan around that goal. And that means getting followers, getting views, getting book sales, and whatever it takes to do that becomes a business plan around your creativity that is separate and a completely different part of your brain
Yeah.
from the actual writing, producing, and publishing part of the book. And the two do marry. There is a space, as you said, book title, book cover, all of that. But at a certain point, once the book is done, you have to let go of the creativity part and just focus on the numbers and focus on the mercenary part of this job.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then your expectations for book sales need to be a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And I can just imagine some of our listeners just cringing right now listening
So
to this
are we. Come
because
on.
they
We're
don't
both like,
know
"Ugh,
what to
social
do.
media."
Yeah. No, and we get it. And that is a real question to ask yourself is what are my goals for this book? Like are you just writing something for your own joy which you may share with your friends? If so, that's great. That's totally okay. But you don't need to listen to our series on the business of writing if that's the case. Just do what you do and that's awesome. But if you're an author who actually does want to make this into a profession and you want to sell some decent numbers of books and maybe make some money off of it, it is essential that you start to think like a business person as well as a creative. Ideally, not at the same time. And that's something that we certainly have talked about before. Do your writing, do your editing, get the book ready, and then, once it's ready, put it over there, think of it as a product, and then put your business hat on and start getting mercenary and thinking about, okay, what do I have to do to get this book out there and in the hands of the people who desperately want to read it, even though they don't know it yet.
Yep. Yep. And I think self-promotion becomes easier too, um, as a business hat, if you can separate yourself from the pitch and make it not only just about the book, but the why it's relevant now, why it should be marketed, why it should have a widespread audience. And the further you can detach yourself as a person, as a creative from the product, which is your book, in that selling,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it will become. You know, I mean, um, tomorrow we're launching one of my books, and um and I was asked by my marketing business person, right? Like what are you even going to like hook any podcast, or what is the hook, right? And I had to pull away from this huge sweeping series and go, well, what is the hook? What is the theme? What's relevant? What makes it marketable today? And it's not about me or the characters or my vision, right? It's all about like, well, what does the average person who's never read one of my books, why would they care? Why would they buy it? Why would they be interested? What's relevant in today's society, today's politics, today's anything to make them interested to hear, listen, read, whatever that might be. And I think the more you can do that to your books, um, and make it big and broad and marketable to a large number of people, away from, oh, it's beautifully written, the cover is beautiful, the character XYZ is hot, whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
pull away from those close ideas of what makes it interesting and make it big, and then suddenly it opens up a lot of marketability.
Yeah.
Marketability, a
Yeah, you
marketability,
got it. You nailed it.
big word.
Yep. Well done. Um, and thinking about business as a whole, definitely think about how much money you as an author have to put into this. Now, again, if you're
Yes.
traditional publishing, it's not such a big deal because the publisher will pay for most of the things. But even as a traditionally published author, you're still going to need a website. You're still going to need to do some marketing on your own. You may have to do some travel if you so choose. These are all things you're going to have to pay for. Guaranteed, the publisher is not paying for that.
Yeah.
So, um, think of it like a business plan. This is particularly relevant for self-published authors, but it's also for traditional. Is how much
And
money am
small
I going to put
press.
into it?
Small
What's
press
that?
authors would small press authors I think would be closer to the self-pubbed in terms
Yep.
of cost of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how much money do I have to put into this, and how much do I realistically expect to get back? And it's good to do those numbers, just so you have expectations going in. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again because it's worth saying for the number of books that you can expect to sell. The average self-published book will sell 75 copies. So I'll let you do the math if you're self-publishing. There you go, 75 copies. The average traditionally published book, for which you get far less money per copy, but there you go. The average traditionally published book sells 2,500 copies in its lifetime. So those are the numbers that you're working with. Those are the numbers you should be working for. Don't think, oh, well, my book is brilliant. I assume I'm going to sell 100,000 copies. Therefore, what can I budget, right? It's great if you do. I hope you do. But just in case you don't, you might want to think about what are the averages and budget towards that. Say, okay, I can afford to spend this much money. I can afford to lose this much money because I expect I'm going to make this much back. And go from there. But again, that's a business decision that you have to make as an individual. It's not a creative decision. The creativity goes into making the book the most amazing book that's ever been written. That's the creativity. And then there's the business side of making sure that the whole world sees it. Or at least the people who need to see it, see it.
Yep. Yep. And I think, um to your point about like how much you're spending, the time you put into your book and the time and the money you put into publishing and producing and advertising your book, you're investing in yourself, and you should go in knowing that likely you will not get a return on your investment with a lot of the things that you try to do. But if you don't try, then your book will languish on your desktop. And even if a dozen people read it, isn't that better than no one at all?
Hmm. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
whatever you can do and whatever you can afford becomes your business
Yeah.
and your book business at whatever scale it can be. So, there it is. I don't have any more to add to that nugget.
Good.
Do you, Ben?
Nope, I'm good. That's awesome. Great
Okay.
places.
Okay. So then that's our show for today, everyone. So don't forget to subscribe after you've listened to us so you don't miss any of our chats. And feel free to leave a review, which really helps us a lot. And if anyone is looking for help getting their book ready for the world, whether that is pre-publishing, editing, or even the post-publishing process and marketing, we definitely recommend our friends at Cascadia Author Services, and you can find them at cascadiaauthorservices.com. And don't forget, you can also catch up with Ben at bennettrcoles.com, as well as on Facebook and Instagram.
And you can find Sarah at sarahdahlman.com and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. Please reach out if there are any topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll see you again when we next chat all about writing.
This has been All About Writing with Ben and Sara.